Isn't this model so cool? For those who don't know, this is a Boeing 747-400 model. This is a 1/200th scale. This is my dream plane to fly. And this plane is going to help us today because today's video is about frequently asked questions about planes. Yesterday I put out a question on my Instagram asking people if they have any plane questions and that I would answer them on this YouTube video. And it's great timing that this just came in, so we'll use this to answer these questions just for the sake of visuals. The first question: why are there 3 separate autopilot systems and when do pilots use them? So that's a great question, but I think there's a little bit of confusion here. There aren't 3 different autopilot systems. There's one autopilot system, but they control 3 operations on a plane. So the first thing is the pitch, which is, let's focus on this plane right here and not focus on myself. So the pitch is what controls the plane going up or down. That is called pitch, and that is controlled using the elevators, which is back here on these 2 wings. When the elevators are in the up position, the plane goes down. When the elevators are in the down position, the plane goes up. So that's your first control. You've got the pitch. The next is your roll, which is what actually makes the plane turn left and turn right. That's your roll. And your roll is controlled using your ailerons, which are on the back of the plane over here. And those, same thing, when they go up, the plane goes, when the left side, okay, this is going to be complicated to explain. Left side wing, when it goes up, you turn left. When the right side goes up, you turn right. So whatever is up, that's the direction you go to. So far we've got the pitch, we've got the roll, and the last axis is your yaw, which is controlled by your rudder, this vertical wing over here. And the yaw also has a cutout over here, so when this goes left, the plane goes right. When that goes right, the plane goes left. That's your yaw. And those are your 3 axes. So you've got your pitch up and down, you've got your roll left and right, and you got your yaw, which actually pivots the whole airplane based on its center of gravity. So this is your yaw. So you've got your pitch, you've got your roll, you've got your yaw. That's your 3 axes autopilot system. Next question: what is a plane? Pretty sure he's just trolling me. Skip that one. This is a good one. Can a plane fly using one engine? So for this example, I'm not going to use the Boeing 747 because, as you guys can see, the Boeing 747 has 4 engines. Which means, yes, absolutely, it would be able to fly with one engine out. But let's talk about the Boeing 737 or Boeing 777, or even the Airbus A320. Any aircraft with only 2 engines, would they be able to fly with only one? And the answer is yes. These planes are actually extremely safe because they're so redundant and they can withstand very, very tough scenarios put on them that they most likely will never experience while they carry passengers. For instance, when Boeing comes out with a new jet, they test their planes to get them certified before they can send them out to the airlines. And these tests include rigorous G-force on the airframe, which a passenger flight will never experience. So yes, an aircraft can fly with one engine, but this doesn't mean that the plane will reach its destination. They will probably call an emergency depending on the scenario and try to land at the closest airport. A common misconception is once a plane's engine goes out, that the plane just goes into an uncontrollable dive and just plummets to the ground, whereas that's not true. When a plane loses its engine or engines, it simply becomes a glider, so you have a glide distance, a scenario where the plane can use the airspeed it's got while it's descending to try to maintain control and maintain some altitude until it needs to land, until it loses enough altitude. But yes, a plane can fly with one engine. So That should make you a little bit more confident in flying. I really like this because I like physics. Explain lift, drag, and thrust. Okay, so until very recently, until I started flight school, I always thought that the main reason an aircraft becomes airborne or its ability to fly is simply because of the engines. The engines are a cause that lead to an effect of the aircraft actually creating something called lift. So let me explain. The engines provide thrust. Thrust is this pushing power or pulling power that allows something to be propelled. So these engines are all propelling the plane forward. That is not lift. That is just thrust. It's propelling it forward. But the way these planes are engineered and designed is that these wings are not completely straight or perpendicular with the fuselage of the plane. They have something called an angle of incidence, which means that the wing is at some type of an angle and it's not completely flat. What does this do? It creates a pocket of air of high pressure underneath the wing and low pressure on top of the wing. Having that pressure differential, that is what we call lift. And in order to have that differential in pressure, you need speed, and that's what the engines are for. So by the engines propelling the plane forward, you're allowing air to pass by the wings faster and quicker, allowing that pressure differential between the wings to create this thing that we call lift. That's what actually makes the plane fly. Great question. Next, landing. How does it work? That is very specific. Landing, how does it work? How can we explain this? Landing is essentially the plane trying to slow down to a speed where the pressure that's exerted on the landing gears is low enough that the plane just doesn't crash and break all of its wheels off and just land on the body itself. As the plane is coming in to land, it's reducing its airspeed. Every aircraft has a different landing speed. So let's come up with a scenario. We're at JFK, this Boeing 747 is coming in for a landing. It's got its landing gears out, it's at the correct airspeed. The plane is usually pitched up, like we said earlier, pitch, so that the back landing gears are able to hit the runway before the front does, before the nose landing gear does. Hitting the back is called the flare. That's where the plane is landing on a bit of an angle, because you don't want to put all that stress and all that weight on one single nose gear. You want to put it on the back so that there's an even distribution of energy on those wheels so the plane just doesn't crash on its nose. I hope I answered your question, but there's a ton of stuff that goes on when you're landing. Is it easy flying a plane? Oh hell no! How many buttons does a cockpit have? Every cockpit is different, every aircraft is different. We've got Boeing, we've got Airbus, we've got Embraers, we've got a ton of companies that manufacture aircraft, so every cockpit is different. But we don't have to memorize buttons for the most part. We use checklists. That's a lot of buttons to memorize. This is a good one. Why does a plane wing shake so much? You ever get that window seat and you're looking out the window and you happen to be next to the wing and you see the wing vibrating and it kind of gets you a little bit scared and a little bit nervous? Well, you have nothing to fear. The aircraft was actually designed so the wing would be able to shake and take vibrations. And what do I mean by that? If the wing was extremely rigid, one, it gives it a higher chance of it just breaking off. And it actually vibrating takes off pressure from the main cabin and the main fuselage of the aircraft. You're actually feeling a lot less turbulence or a lot less vibration because the wings are absorbing all those vibrations. And the last question for this video is, why does it take so long for a plane to actually take off? Every aircraft has something called a rotate speed. The rotate speed is basically the speed where an aircraft can become airborne. So what are the variables for this? The weight of the aircraft, how much fuel is in the aircraft, how many passengers are there, and how much runway you have. So you've got an aircraft at the end of the runway and it's trying to gain enough speed to reach that rotate speed and then climb. So if it's the case of this Boeing 747, which is one of the heavier aircraft, it's going to use up more runway to gain that speed and then be able to take off rather than taking off prematurely and then hitting the tail because it doesn't have enough lift, or it's not gaining enough speed and you pull up too early and it ends up falling off the runway, which is not a good thing. This is basically what pilots say when the aircraft is ready to take off. V1. notice that they said something called V1. V1 is basically the speed in which they reach. That would be the safe speed for them to be able to abort the takeoff, which means cancel the takeoff, reduce speed, engage the brakes, everything they can do to slow down and stop the plane before falling off the runway. After you pass V1, even if one of the engines go out, the plane still needs to take off, or else you're just gonna fall off of the runway. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I definitely enjoyed making it. I will definitely put out more polls and more questions out on my Instagram for you guys to ask. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, support it by sharing and liking and commenting. Let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next video.